That's how similar their stories have been and their play styles match up. So obviously I'm very excited to be casting this one with you, cats. Let's get into the introductions. Oxide for the first game. Bottom left, playing for Team Clash, he is Reynor.
And in the top right-hand side, the red Terran player for Team Liquid, it is Clem. And these two, they're here now, and we've been talking about them for the last few years, but really the talks about Reynor started something like when he was 12, I believe he was one of the earliest, if not the earliest, player that I recall getting to Grandmaster, the Grandmaster League at an earlier age. Nice Mice comes to mind as well on that front, but I'm not sure who actually. I believe they were both at 12 Grandmaster.
I think so, yeah. It's actually been, it's kind of scary. I feel like it's been difficult keeping track of just how young players are that are making GM, right? We have still
True that, yeah.
I guess a surprising amount of very young players in Europe and North America that are putting in the time to make it the GM in StarCraft 2. So, we have a couple of tournaments that are specifically catered to highlight that type of stuff, which is really awesome to see. Like literally, if you're under a certain age or if you haven't made it into DreamHack yet, those types of tournaments and those requirements, it's making a very great ground to work off of, right? So that we have more Clems and Reynors, and I guess MaxPax was also kind of the third youngin to come up and start to show off his skill, and another race as well. Fortunately, we just saw him lose to Marine Lord, so we're not going to be seeing him in the season finals. And one of these guys also is not going to make it into the season finals. Clem has made it every season so far this year. Reynor, famously, did not make it last season and is very hungry to make it this season.
Most definitely, he is the reigning world champion after all. Clem is going to be looking for the third of Reynor on location at the triangle. Reynor instead will take it here on the other location where the Reaper will actually walk by. We'll see not a drone as it is hiding behind the mineral line, and Reynor will be able to situate that third just fine. At the same time, the Reaper will be as annoying as only Clem Reapers can be. And this drone will have to be morphed into a spore. Not what you want already for Reynor, but it's tiny, tiny little details.
Very tiny, but it is still at this level something that we always talk about. We always highlight how much damage Clem's Reaper can do. Not going to be able to get the Reaper or the Creep Tumor this time around. Talk about high ground on Oxide, all that good stuff. Benefits of high ground on Oxide, for sure. But otherwise, Oxide, typically known for being that Terran-favored map, and we do talk a lot about Roaches on this map, regardless of the players. Yeah. But now that we are talking about specifically Clem, I feel like Reynor's got to be trying to either throw, as I speak, throw an earlier Roach timing or the more typical 1-1 Roach timing, and there's the Roach Warren.
I mean, we're seeing players kind of what it feels like exploiting Clem's weaknesses a little bit, right? Like we've talked about it endlessly, and Serral and Reynor both not known for Roach styles, but it seems like Rogue has kind of shown them the way to defeat their nemesis here, at least for the last 3 or 4 seasons, right? He's just been taking them down consistently, and they have had enough of it seems. We'll see if the Reynor Roaches work as well as the Serral Roaches, or if Clem has made some adaptations. Oh, already a huge adaptation here. Zombie Grab, as we well know, Banshee is one of the best answers to earlier Roaches.
It definitely is, and it's not too surprising to see Clem do this on this map, but he has also tried to, get away with 3CC builds, right into Widowmine builds. That's another trip up that can happen when we're talking about earlier Roaches or 1-1 Roach pushes, is that if they start up building Widowmines, they're in a bit of a worse spot. So the Roaches have been seen. Reynor knows that it's unlikely they're going to do any damage, not really worth even trying to chase across the map in case the Banshee comes across right to the Hellions and onto the next stage, which I would imagine is into the 1-1 Roach push, which despite Clem's, I guess, best efforts and, supposedly you should be figuring this out, like people are going to do this against him, he still sometimes falters against.
Yeah, so we'll see. The Roaches for now just defensive, so an interesting approach from Reynor, not really looking to hit a timing by the looks of it. Maybe perhaps after seeing that there is a Banshee opening, choosing not to commit to it. Instead, he almost has his lair already finished. He will have the spores and location to kind of deal with this, and yeah, this will do not too much on the side of Clem. So things are looking up for Reynor to start.
Not taking any damage, but starting to lose out on some Cubers. The Banshee's going to bully some of these units back because the Overseer wasn't in position. The Hellions do try and go into the natural, almost get blocked, but by the time they actually make it to the drones, there's only a couple of them left over. So not going to be any massive damage, just a little bit of lost mining time, 2 drones, a handful of lings. I would say ultimately not quite worth the sacrifice of the Hellions that early on, but on the other hand, these Hellions are just, I mean, they're pretty worthless as the game goes on, especially against Roaches.
Yes, the Roaches are going to be able to displace the Hellions very easily, so denying creep even is a little bit more daunting of a task for those Hellions. And yeah, I mean, Clem kind of taking an opportunity that Reynor seemed to give him positionally, but I wonder if that was just bait the entire time, because those queens were already well in position, and if Reynor actually gets the Evo Chamber block off, which he was planning to do by the looks of it, he doesn't lose a single drone and kills everything. Instead, he loses a couple drones, which is still fantastic as far as trades go.
Yeah, it did really feel like, I feel like even we could feel that Clem wanted to do some type of dive. He really wanted the opportunity, but forcing the issue that quickly, yeah, as I already painted the picture, it's like, oh, on one hand, all right, fair enough. On the other, maybe it could have been a little more helpful killing some more creep tumors before all is said and done. The most important thing for the next portion of the game is keeping these Banshees alive. Reynor had some excellent target fire, almost got rid of one Banshee. And while one Banshee can still detect run-bys and can still help against Roaches, it really isn't the same as having two. Two make you feel so much more secure as a Terran player. And obviously, when they buddy up, they can actually kill drones. And, you know, that's something that Clem even showed against Cyril, I think, yesterday, right? Where he had Banshees even into 10, 12 minutes of the game, still picking up units.
Yeah, a big poke here on the side of Clem, but this type of unit, it's not going to trade as efficiently, right? Like, if you're playing Mute or Ling Bane, I suppose, this early on, then those Marines will pick off some units, then load back into the medevacs, and if you're Clem, you have the resources in terms of attention, in terms of actions to spare, to just shove off a few links, to just tax your opponent for being alive. With the Roaches, it's not the case, right? It's much more difficult to kill a Roach, so if the Roaches collapse onto the 2 medevacs, the 2 medevacs have to lift off pretty fast, and they don't really get anything accomplished. And here's where Clem needs to just exercise map control like he's doing. Great job there clearing some creep, and be more willing to sit back and relax.
I do like that Reynor's not going to push the issue on a 1-1 timing. I don't think it would have worked. Clem has been rather foolproof against it. Foolproof? Can't speak very well today. The Marines are getting on top of the Roaches, and Clem seems confident to take the trade. I think that is okay, especially as the second pair of Marine drops manage to find maybe the Queen. They find one, but not a second one. Yeah, it's like Reynor, I don't think would have worked. Clem has been able to save his Banshees. He's been building up a humongous tank count, but what Reynor is doing is just going into transition. He's getting fungals, he's getting a Baneling Nest, he's going into that hive. Something that Clem, I think, will eventually pick up on more and more, that he's not attacked. He's going to be like, oh, it's late game, it's hive. But I still would say that he want to get some type of confirmation on. So already being denied from the main thanks to the Spore Crawlers might still put Clem in a little bit of doubt. But yeah, more he sees, expansions, drones, he's going to eventually see the Infestors. The more he's going to know that he probably wants to try and hit some actual pre-hive timing. Maybe why he's already moving out here very confidently, just with 1-1, but with 5 tanks and 2 Banshees still to help out.
Yeah, the Banshees having been kept alive is huge. The tanks are going to find good positions behind these rocks. The Infestors are not going to help. The hive has not come in handy at all. There is a Viper in production, but again, it's not going to help. Baneling speed is not even done, only halfway through. So this is a very, very strong timing that Clem is hitting here, and Reynor does not have the means to stop it just yet. In fact, he's going to lose a lot of workers here as Clem heads onto this north base, and this is looking incredible for the Frenchman.
Yeah, I think Reynor was not expecting such a powerful push. It got to a very abusive part of Oxide, perhaps way sooner than Reynor was anticipating. The rocks weren't broken, the units weren't prepared. A fungal does go down to the Marines, and the tanks are on siege, so a couple of Corrosive Biles could be big here. Though, they do grab 2 tanks. There weren't that many Ravagers, and I think already just the loss of the economy, almost 30 drones killed, 4th base has been sacrificed, 5th base could go down. Reynor's in a ton of trouble. He was supposed to have the Viper out, he was supposed to have maybe some more Lings out. Now he will be able to clean this up thanks to that one Viper and the Blinding Cloud, but Clem has already done so much damage.
Yeah, what's crazy is 30 seconds to a minute later, this attack is a lot weaker from Clem, but Clem hitting a really, really strong timing. I'm not sure if he necessarily knows just the speed at which Reynor is going to that hive, the speed at which he is getting those Infestors and those Vipers, but none of those key pieces are available for Reynor at the start of this fight, and that just translates into a huge Clem advantage going into this, I guess, extended mid-game.
I don't think that was a cancel. It's another kill that Clem picks up. I mean, this is kind of a small number of units. If Reynor had a more, maybe like 10 more supply or a handful of Lings, I think Clem might have been overstepping his a little bit here. I guess he could always pick up with so many medevacs on the right side, so he's almost always safe. But yeah, I do like that he's pulling back the tanks, just leaving a little squadron of Marines. A lot less expensive if he messes up. And he is just macroing back at home. So 4th base is now a planetary. He's added on additional barracks. His Ghost Academy is also already done, so we will see eventually that move into Ghosts. But Reynor's gotten maxed out, and while he applies some pressure, can't do very much more, but grabs 2 tanks, puts himself on the map at the very least. He's going to try and perhaps recover economically as well. As I say it, no drones, no hatchery. He's actually just going to go all in with this, and I just don't think it's ever going to work.
It's going to be very difficult to make it work. So Clem with great positioning here just to pull back, knowing that his opponent has to commit onto him. Because, I mean, Reynor, like you said, he can't make more drones, right? Like, he doesn't have the supply to do that. And he just has committed everything that he has into army. It is a huge army, but it is an overinflated army in terms of cost, right? Because the roaches are just not good for cost. So even though it is a much bigger army, if we look at the army actual cost, Clem's army is still the more expensive.
I think Reynor identified that he wasn't going to find much success at all. Clem, even when having to move quickly to defend, still has such a good army. So many tanks, so many medevacs, lots of bio that are working their way up to 3-3. So Reynor does try and add on some more, macro things. Drones, a hatchery came down, Ultralisk Cavern, finally get into those upgrades as well. But he did make sure to max out first and at least be able to apply some type of pressure. I do think Clem knows he's in a good position. He wants to continue pushing Reynor and not just let him recover from that massive amount of damage that he took. But, it can be hard to actually kill someone, especially with corrosive vials just continuing to buy that time. Vipers continuing to buy that time. So I think Clem has to acknowledge it's going to go in a late game. Like, he's going to need some ghosts probably. But I think he's going to be able to be in a very good position late game. Whereas some of the other situations we've seen Clem in, he's a bit behind at this point. Now he's ahead.
Yeah, super far ahead. And Reynor trying to do something of what he did against Hero Marine in terms of getting to those ultras, maybe anticipating that Clem will be light on Marauders. But this is a huge engagement again for Clem. These traits are going to super favor him. The Vipers are now exposed. 2 of them will fall. The other one doesn't have energy to retaliate. On the other side, Clem also finding damage with some medevac drops. And this is looking like the youngling will just be end up taking this series, or at least this game, I'm sorry, very quickly here, as it's looking near impossible for Reynor now.
It does. Reynor's supply drops. He loses the Vipers that were critical to his success. He's only down to 1, not even sure where it is. He loses yet another base and 20 more drones. And the army just gets to pick up and leave if it wants to. It should be able to. Well, maybe not so much anymore. Okay, no queens are around to get these very weak medevacs. Yeah. But still, a great grab for Clem. Now has an almost 60 supply lead. His tanks are going to be destroyed, sure. Reynor is going to be able to at least say something about that engagement towards the last second, but he's in an absolutely terrible position. Now I think the only option is to all-in. There is actually no recovery at this point. He is way too far behind. But all-in's not going to work either. Just make that clear.
Oh, yeah. Those medevacs, I would have been so paranoid to load up those medevacs. I mean, one fungal or one parasitic bomb or a couple of queens showing up or anything would have just taken down an entire army loaded in those. But Clem does manage to save most of that army. The Banshees have still continued to put on damage. 7 kills on one, 6 on the other, but it's a lot of expensive kills as well. This isn't necessarily drones, as an Infestor goes down to them as well. And Reynor trying to re-establish some terrain, but it's going to be to no avail. Clem is not going to give him the time to do that either. He is just pushing out on the map. A complex army composition. The Ultras are going to get sniped, and Reynor will have to tap out.
I do think that Reynor's game plan kind of got interrupted from the get-go, right? As soon as he saw that it was, in fact, a Banshee opener, he's probably like, okay, whoops, that kind of sucks. But you move on, you try and get out of it. Then I think maybe his second plan was to basically threaten the 1-1 Roach all in so that Clem's feeling scared and saying to himself, like, I've lost to this too many times, or I've been put in difficult positions too many times. I'm really going to be rock solid. And then he's too rock solid. He over-defends, right? But Clem, I guess, was identifying the exact scenario for the 15 minutes that game played out. It felt like he knew what everything was going to happen, and it happened the way that he expected. So his push that killed that base, that killed 30 drones, was absolutely perfectly timed. There's such a high chance, as you were saying, that there's a handful more units that Reynor's a little more prepared, or it's a little bit later of a push, and it just looks like, oh, that wasn't the timing. Oh, that wasn't great. But no, it was absolutely perfect, and Reynor just would not be able to recover from that too easily.
Yeah, Clem really speeding up that push and playing a phenomenal game. I mean, we saw him be extremely light on Marauders for that push in favor of getting those tanks and in favor of getting that many more units situated for it. So really cool trade-offs there that he was working with, but that's what allows him to really push out on the map so early. And yeah, Reynor was just kind of caught off guard there, so he wasn't ready for it. Not sure that he's going to be beating himself up too much for that one. As again, like you just said, if he had been making a few more units instead of all those tech options at the same time, he would have been just perfectly fine, I think.
Yeah, maybe it would have been better for him to max out and really threaten a push that, yeah, I don't think would have worked. I don't think he would have pulled the trigger on, but at the very least, a maxed out Roach army is always intimidating. But basically what Clem saw every time he dropped, every time he scanned for creep, was that there wasn't a big gigantic army. In fact, of the Roaches that were coming to respawn, there weren't even that many of them. So I think he picked up very quickly on what the true game plan was. I do agree, though. I think that Reynor is going to be able to easily shake that one off. It did not go according to plan. It happens in StarCraft, but there are probably 4 more games to go if these guys really are as close in skill as we believe. Top left of Lightshade, we have the Lightshade. We have the red Terran, Clem.
And in the bottom right-hand side, it is the world champion, Reynor, for Clash. One of these players will be eliminated in this match. That is nuts. I mean, I feel like we haven't talked enough about it. It's still sinking with me, but we will have both Showtime and Marine Lord at the season finals this time around. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's pretty cool. I mean, I think this is, we still kind of stick with the narrative of the top 3, which I still think is mostly true. But then we do have that 4th kind of being up in the air. We've learned that much, at least, that here Marines are guaranteed to be the 4th. Max Packs upset him. Now we have Showtime and Marine Lord this season. So I think the narrative is going to continue to change. That really, we might still have the top 3 to talk about. But basically spots 4 through 6 or 7, yeah, I think that's going to be heavily contested. We'll never quite know exactly what's going to come out from those players, the 4 through 8, let's call them, I guess.
Yeah, and I think in those slots, I mean, filling those slots are people who have looked very impressive, who have given runs for their money to the top 3 consistently now. So we're developing more of a European scene that looks a little bit more like the Korean scene, in the sense that, like, we are reaching a point where everyone can kind of beat everyone, but we still have some favorites at the top, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. That's exciting.
Yeah. Kind of a great time to be, especially a European StarCraft fan. StarCraft fan, the European region. Either way, that's a lot to talk about when it comes to this region. Mm-hmm. It's also a great time to be a StarCraft fan in general. TSL just got announced yet again. Too much StarCraft to even keep track of. It's beautiful stuff, and the most beautiful of beautiful in StarCraft is definitely TVZ between these two, 100%.
Yeah, it really doesn't get better than this. Let's see what this Reaper has to offer this time around. As Reynor not being forced to morph as Spore, at least, so that's a little bit better than last game. The Creep Tumor, however, we will have to be pushed back, and Clem looking for that link, but Reynor pulls it back just in time.
Sometimes it feels so important, that first Creep Tumor. It really sets the tone, I feel like.
Yeah.
So
it bothers the players. Like, it bothers, like, if you shouldn't lose something and you lose it, it messes with your ability, I feel like, to continue to it's just like annoying. It's annoying more than anything else, but annoyances can be trendsetters and how they can dictate the pace of a game and the feel of a game. And, like, when you feel outdone, it feels bad.
It also, I mean, to the smallest degree here, but like on this map specifically, we can see the scenario where it already kind of puts Clem in the driver's seat. Reynor has to adapt to the fact that Clem's Reaper will probably given the chance, kill a creep tumor. So he puts it all the way to the right, even though he plans on spreading creep to the left, because that's where his third hatch is. So he already starts like his creep over to the most important area a little bit later, just because that Reaper is that threatening. But yeah, not to super overanalyze, just a small portion. We do have builds starting to be decided. Clem has gone into a 1-1-1. And as the Overlord gets in here, it is going to see that it's probably going to be a Liberator popping out of there. Maybe a Viking afterwards. Maybe a second Liberator. We've seen some great success. I actually thought that here Marine was really proving how bothersome and effective some random timed Liberators and random numbers of Liberators can be. But yeah, he's not here today.
From the perspective of Reynor, he hasn't scouted the whole base either. So there could be an armory somewhere, and that could have been something like a medevac for a Hellbat timing. We've seen a fair share of those as well. So yeah, we'll see how he adapts, how he reacts. For the time being, his queens are, I think, yeah, there are Liberator spores in the main, and now one going down in the natural as well. So he's definitely accounting for the possibility of this happening.
Yeah, I think the fact that Stim is also already researching does point more so to this, but oh, that is an excellent defense. Start things off. Queen's also in position. Liberator gets nothing done. Also doesn't have to be worried about. So the Hellions, well, usually you're going to be taken care of. Lings are prepared. They had quite a space to dive without Queens bothering them, but I think Clem was like, that was too easy or something.
Yeah, a little bit too easy. And yeah, there's so much creep as well that you have to go through if you're Clem there, that it feels like, oh, wow, that looked like it was outside of the Liberator zone. Someone clipped that. I swear that Queen did not deserve to die.
It really depends how long it's in the zone before the Liberator actually shoots. It's been my experience. So the fact that it was mostly in before it shot.
The leash range, perhaps, if I'm learning about leash ranges.
Yeah. But that wasn't the only Queen that went down. The Hellions managed to find a weak Queen on the front lines, too. And, you know, as much as creep tumors can be important, generally when you get to 6, 7 queens, we're talking about, like, creep tumors, killing them, does it do anything? I don't know. But killing queen, absolutely. Not just the investment remade into a queen that you definitely want throughout the game, but also, obviously, the energy being taken away. So not as many active creep tumors to work with.
Yeah, if we get a Reynor interview somehow, I want to ask about that queen and how he felt. I feel like I feel like that looked so off. But yeah, the game will continue to transpire as it does. Hellions out on the map, trying to look for opportunities to kind of mitigate the spread of the nasty Sir creep if you're a human.
It's probably pretty nasty. I can't imagine they're stealing creep to make spas, you know, spa day creep. But that would be pretty amazing.
Yeah, maybe it's, I mean, it has some regenerative properties, actually.
Exactly.
So as far as spas are concerned, it must be one of the better materials that you can get there. The Liberator is going to try to find an opening into the natural base, but there's already the spore that we discussed earlier, as well as a Hydra then being the weapon of choice for Reynor here, moving into the mid game.
Baneling Hydra eventually into those lurkers. Did make sure to prioritize, you know, the lair and the Baneling speed first and foremost, so that speed is going to be available for this push. Not quite yet, but if Clem was a little more hesitant, a little less confident of a Terran player, then I guarantee it would have been done. But he's so confident, he already does the push. He does see that there is a back attack prepared, so he is going to push away from this even before Baneling speed is done. Simply put, Reynor had enough units, but it's going to try and take down as much as possible. And big distraction. Oh, big distraction. That Liberator. Wow. Oh, no. Oh, only just now pulling away the drones. 13 is fantastic.
Oh, that is absurd. 52 workers now from Reynor to the 63 of Clem. That Liberator will just stand its ground knowing it died a hero. And on the other side, the medevacs are trying to continue to keep up the pressure, make Reynor make difficult decisions. Now he needs to choose. And as long as Clem is on this side of the map, right, it's very difficult to choose to make drones while your opponent is applying pressure. So, but the squeeze. Okay, Clem is paying attention, of course. One medevac getting awfully low there, and it will not fall by the looks of it. One Marine just kind of swimming with sharks there.
That was almost a really good move there from Reynor. Fortunately, doesn't find the medevac. Still has the queens over there spreading that creep, which he has to be concerned about. He knows the medevacs went somewhere, and it's very, very likely they didn't actually just escape. Here they are back again. Queens have been pulled away just in time. The Liberator killing that many drones, too, is especially painful because Reynor basically didn't have that impressive of a drone count. He went to 66, I think, again, and instead of maybe 80, to make sure that he swamped that push. And he did do a great job with the push itself, but to lose drones despite what such a promising setup looked like is extra painful for the Zerg. He has already remade them. He is finally on his way to 80-ish drones. But Clem, he's getting to play his game, right? Which is what we usually talk about the other Zergs who do manage to beat him are doing effectively. Rogue and Serral basically don't let Clem play his game, show off his micro, do the pressure. And unfortunately, Reynor is letting all this happen, not on purpose, of course, but just it is what's happening. Clem feeling super confident, like this is absolutely the TVZ he loves to play.
Absolutely. And tactically, positionally, Clem is one of the very best in the world. I mean, look at that pre-spread, look at the tanks. The tank positionings are lovely, very difficult to get surrounded for the two tanks, and very well spread also on that high ground. So, yeah, this is going to be difficult for Reynor, who is now going for a backstab. He's going to look for a surround, but Clem already... Or actually, he's going to be looking for a counterattack instead, but Clem already, regardless, he does have those Hellbats pre-morphed, so Ling Rambai is not going to be nearly as effective. One tank will fall, but that is for a lot of Zerg.
Exactly. That was, I guess, something we said about the Ling Rambai, but not a whole lot. And now Clem's got 2-2, about to have +1 in his tank. Another tank is found. I mean, this does make it a little, again, a bit more worth it as Reynor also sends more Lings across the map. He's in a very difficult situation. He's desperately trying to dislodge Clem in other ways than just winning the fight, because he's not very hopeful that he is going to be able to win the fight. Even some creep spread now lacking between the push and the Banelings. Ling run by, again, not too successful. Even with the Banelings rolling through first, only 5 SCDs go down.
Yeah, finds most of the Hellbats, but 2 remain, and those 2 are annoying enough for the Lings that they don't manage to do much damage. And this is kind of like the trademark of Reynor. When we talk about Clem playing his game, the game that Reynor wants to play is setting himself those win conditions with those counterattacks. Here comes the big surround, however, from Reynor as his army collapses in the middle of Clem. But Clem has managed to kite back with most of his bio and back to the tank. So no, yeah, it seems like Reynor will get a cleanup after all, but at what cost, CG?
The cost of the game. He's now down 50 supply. Clem still has plenty of Marines to work with. Has to pick up over here, sure, but is going to cancel yet another base, and Reynor isn't really anywhere close to being in a comfortable position. He's not exactly on an amazing economy, not on a 5th base, only on 73 drones. His hive will finish, but he won't be able to afford many things from that hive. And it's not like he's getting to lurkers either. Still no lurker den, which, you know, you always got to give a little bit of, I guess you got to give them credit, the lurkers credit for comeback games, because they're the best thing that Zerg has to try and turtle. But we don't even have that. So Reynor has to win with a worse economy and a basic layer-based army that is Ling, Bane, Ling, Hydra.
Yeah, and he has not been able to breach in terms of just counter offense at all, right? Like he has not been able to put any pressure on the economy of Clem, which is, again, trademark Reynor. Usually, we are happy if you're a Reynor fan when he holds that attack, because you know that right behind that, he probably did a lot of economic damage. He probably connected with those Ling Bane that we saw Clem deflect just before the attack. So then you're feeling good because he just barely held whatever. He just got ahead in economy. But this time around, Clem retaining every advantage. And it's looking more and more difficult for a Reynor who is forced to concede ground here.
Conceding this base is usually game over for the Zerg unless something else crazy is happening. The Queens are going to get taken down. The Vipers are barely going to have enough juice to help against the tanks. But, I mean, there's still so many Marines. And the tanks are actually really well spread. I guess it's worth pointing out that Clem is dangerously on to creep. He finally cleans it up. That's going to take a little while for that to recede. So maybe if Reynor can get the most amazing engagement down 40 army supply, I mean, this would be the better one he could take. But even then, I think he knows it's not really going to work. So I guess he's going to wait for lurkers, apparently, is the plan here. And the lurkers will probably, if there were enough of them, if they came at the right time, I think they might force Clem to disengage for a hot second, but definitely not going to be bringing him back in the game too easily. And now Clem even has reinforcements.
Yeah, and that parasitic bomb hoping to take down some medevacs, but Clem micros it promptly. That means the Viper is not going to be available for other spells onto the tanks potentially. So it's getting more and more difficult. Another parasitic bomb, but these are Hail Marys, right? Like he's just trying to buy time, like you were saying, for those lurkers, for a big collapse onto the army of Clem, but I don't think it's gonna be enough. And here comes Reynor setting up. Here comes an abduct. The other Viper actually dies unceremoniously. Reynor just doesn't want to take a fight that he can't win. But can you take a fight that you can win at this point? I don't know that that's the case. Clem just alert at every stage, and Reynor not finding any opening.
Yeah, I don't think he can. He's actually just taking control of 2 of your reinforcements points, right? Main and natural can't reinforce. Lurkers actually were doing a great job defending, still are actually there. The reason that the bio army has just been depleted was 3 Lurkers getting some amazing shots. Clem tried to concave on them, but I guess the AI didn't really work with them, or how close he already was didn't work out very well. He does grab the Viper, and the tanks are going to still provide a lot of damage here for the last hurrah of Reynor's defense. But it is going to be a cleanup for now. I mean, Reynor, he's going to have to deal with another push very soon. It's up in the top right now, and he's definitely not in position. He knows it, but at least he got 1 battle under his belt.
I guess. I mean, that was a little bit careless towards the end there from Clem, right? Running into those lurkers. He really didn't need to do anything other than just sit there and wait for Reynor to continue to make the mistakes, or just finish reinforcing with this army. If this army joins with the other, it was GG, but it is GG a minute later, so nothing worth noting for Clem there, as he is going to be happy to win through.
Yeah, it was Clem's game the entire time. I mean, I would say from the Liberator, yes, but even going back to what we were talking about how Clem wants to play, it kind of goes to the build order of Reynor. As soon as Reynor decides to play into Ling Baneling and nothing else, it feels like that is where Clem is going to be strongest, right? If we knew for a fact that Reynor was going to play this style every single game, I do think that many of us would be more confident in saying a Clem victory, you know, but we were anticipating some type of way of messing Clem up, something that's been shown by other Zergs. And unfortunately for Reynor, he's not been as successful as those other Zergs in trying to trip him up.
Yeah, and even as far as build order matchups are concerned for this particular game, it's worse than the norm, because usually you have Reynor willing to go for Ling Bane, Muta, or something of the likes, and we've talked, or he has talked about how he doesn't like in particular going up against Clem's mine style against that type of composition. But this time around, Clem perhaps anticipating that Reynor could be going for the roaches, or perhaps playing to the map and its ledges, goes for the tanks instead. And tanks against Hydras are much better than, than mines, right? Like, mines are kind of countered by Hydras to a good degree. So Reynor not only letting Clem play the style that he wants to play, or the type of pacing that he wants to have in not forcing the roaches, but also stacks up poorly against the tanks with the Hydra choice. So yeah, rough one, CG. Blackburn now, will he be able to bring it back? Will he be able to win a map, is the question at this point.
That is the question. 2-0. Very, very solid 2-0 from Clem. I think even Reynor is going to be scratching his head a little bit, but you know, he managed to do it last season. He took 2 games, and one of them at the very least was kind of like definitely not supposed to happen, the Night is From game, right? But we know that Reynor is very capable of taking games off of Clem, but only if he can do a little bit of mixing up. Blackburn as just a map might be the place where Reynor can mix it up. It is a bit different, and we'll see if Reynor can start his comeback right here, right now. As he spawns to the bottom left for Team Clash, it is Reynor.
And in the bottom right for Team Liquid, it is Clem. All right. What would you like to see from Reynor on this map? I feel like we've seen roaches, but they're kind of just too expected at this point, right?
Well,
no?
Yeah, I think that there's still ways. I mean, I've never really been a super fan of roach styles. I guess I kind of have to preface this with that. I do think that it is, I mean, basically, I just don't think the skill ceiling is as high. You know, like, it kind of depends on a certain meta, a certain map pool, a certain expectation from the Terran player, but it doesn't really provide a whole lot of flexibility. It doesn't get to differentiate itself between the Zerg players who use them, in my opinion. Obviously, Rogue is more successful, but even then, it's not like I was super impressed. I was like, Rogue used those roaches so much better than everyone else. The roaches themselves, no. The way he strategizes, yes. So I'm gonna, say that first. But I do think there are at least ways for roaches to play outside of just either an early roach push or a 1-1 roach push. I do think we've seen enough games where 1-1 roach push does just enough that it allows you, the Zerg player, to be in control. You kind of situate how the game's going to go for the first 8 minutes before the attack happens, and then you do just barely enough that you can get into lurkers, you can get into ultras, you can get into a late game. So I guess I still do kind of want to see Reynor try it because it seems to be more effective. But yeah, to your point in your question, like it is something that Clem is supposed to be getting even better against every time he faces a Zerg player.
Yeah, and we have seen adaptations between the time that Rogue used roaches against Maru in the GSL finals. And now from the Terrans, they'll usually take the vertical third base, for example, rather than the triangle oftentimes to account for the potential roaches, just getting good surface area and a shorter rush distance. I completely agree with you. The skill ceiling for roaches is definitely lower. There is just, they are slower units, so you can't be as active. They have less range, so you are more committed to engagements. They cost more and cost more supply per larva as well, which means you don't need to hit necessarily the perfect injects or anything like that either, right? It's one of the strategies that is, from that perspective, the easiest to execute. And roaches can't be magical in that sense. What's magical is that when he chooses to use them and what opponents he chooses to use them against. And that is one of the best traits of Rogue as a strategist, is that he recognizes weakness, he recognizes and plays to the map and to his opponents, and he is not ever shy to just do whatever will win him the game rather than to display the most skill or the most fun games, right? So yeah, I completely agree. And Reynor is kind of the opposite, the anti-Rogue. He is a flashy player. He is a fast-paced player. He is the type of player that wants to outdo his opponents. Roaches just don't suit him.
Yeah, I think that is still fair to say, even though we've seen plenty of games where Reynor is totally fine, even very good with roaches. We do have, obviously, a lot of complicated things happening right now, things you wouldn't usually see in a TVZ. So the NGB block on the third base is quite the bother for Reynor. And then some Reaper micro, as we expect. Even the Hellions trying to just kind of, ninja their way into the natural. The other units are distracted. It's a very different start for a TVZ, but is it a worthwhile start for Clem? Was that overall worth it?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a wash a little bit, and we see that Clem is anticipating that there might be a roach opening, as well as he is opening with Banshees without cloak, or perhaps even just a single Banshee without cloak, anticipating that there could be an earlier roach attack perhaps, as we saw Cyril do, I believe, a 44 worker roach attack to capitalize on one of his greedier openings. So we'll see what Reynor is going to choose to do as the lair, and now the Baneling nest also goes down. The lair is nearly completed. This game will progress, but this is also a dangerous map, CG, for Reynor, because he kind of revealed his hand a little bit in his last interview, and he talked about this map. And I mean, there are features of this map such as the lack of bases compared to other maps, right? And so massive greedy styles, which is, I think, one of his fortes, one of the players that really popularized the 90 to 100 drone Zerg swarmy styles, right? Like trade non-stop type thing and just be on your opponent's face the entire time. Not as possible on this map as on others, just because there's less bases. So if you make those drones and you start mining out your bases, then you just don't have the real estate to use them. And yeah, that kind of telegraphs to Clem perhaps that Reynor has to be a little bit more mid-game oriented on this map compared to others.
Yeah, and even though we're talking a bit later into the game to get 5-6 bases, which is absolutely true, but even as this map goes, getting a fourth base is really difficult. You either take the fourth that pushes you closer to the Terran's third, so the kind of corner pyramid one, or you take the gold base, which is great, except for the fact that a Terran player can siege up behind it with a variety of things. Everything that a Terran has is a projectile. It's actually everything is range, except SCs.
That's an excellent point, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the difficulties. So basically, when you play this particular style that Reynor is doing, so Ling, Baneling, Muta, it is a lot, I think, about you have to consider how you're going to defend the gold base. And if you're not necessarily going to defend it itself, then you're going to maybe apply some pressure. Maybe Mutas can do that trick. Already not going so swimmingly here for Reynor, though, as two of his queens get caught out. Lots of creeps are going to be cleaned up, and his Reynor just simply is not prepared. The Banelings are found out as well. Oh, but Clem doesn't realize that they were just a little bit later to actually finishing. He's not going to try and jump on top of them, rather get something that he knows he'll get for free almost, and that was the queens. Now running away. Maybe he could target fire. No, the Link catches around. Ooh, the last second pickup. Oh boy. That was
yeah,
exciting.
the last second surround also from Reynor. It felt like if he doesn't get the surround, if those Lings die, and then the Banelings are, you know, waddling on through without speed, and Clem turns around and kills them, it might have just been game over. But I'm with you. I mean, Clem being overly cautious, perhaps something that if Reynor was to make a huge comeback here, will look back on for eternity, because he could have just ended the game, I feel like. If he target fires those Banelings as they're morphing, Reynor kind of baits him onto going for the Queens, which again, like you said, Clem knows that he can get, but it's also the pieces that Reynor was offering for him to get kind of as a sacrifice to not lose the game right away.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. Mutas are out, not that many of them, but enough, you know, if it's a surprise, then any amount is enough. And they were a surprise. No missile turrets were made. Clem not anticipating this. He does still, oh no! I was gonna say, he still has a very, you know, very difficult spot to dislodge over on the other side of the map, but the drop actually not being quite paid attention to. Banelings do roll into it. This time, paid attention to. There it is, as he finally gets a handle on things back at home.
Yeah, but the Mutas have continued to do pretty good damage here. 11 workers already going down. There is a turret going down, I believe, at the natural base of Clem, so that the Mutas shouldn't be able to find too much more anyway. 12 workers is already a lot. And Reynor, for the first time, and in spite of a sloppy early game, perhaps to some degree, looks to be stabilizing right now. And I think if he just brings back the Muta, he can punish these medevacs as well. That tank in the most annoying position ever will eventually be found as well.
Yeah, they got a really good shot at the end, too, so it helped even up the supply a little bit. But yeah, more Mutas are being made. The initial ones, well, he did lose 2. So he's going to need a few more before things get scary again, as far as Clem's defense back at home. Clem, I do think, is getting maybe a little bit overeager. Oh, waiting for the reinforcements would have been good. He does still manage to grab another 2 Mutas, though, as Reynor's control wasn't 100% foolproof. But now Clem's got everything back together. Now if he can just spread off of creep, which is exactly what he's doing. Tank is not going to get a shot, though, but the Marine spread is really good, and there's only a few Banelings left over. More are being made, but the lack of creep spread, the fact that Reynor's already lost control over this game to an extent, is quite worrying. It looks like Clem is also aware that he's been maybe occasionally overstepping, so he's going to pull back for now. But, got to get back on the creep spread ASAP over there.
Yeah, I do like Reynor's position, maybe even over Clem's, but just this is the best position that we've seen him all series long for sure. He does have Muta out to kind of keep tabs out on the map, to try and keep harassing stuff, try to maybe force some reinforcements to be spent or transitory SCVs and the likes, right? Like, Muta are just annoying, is my point. And on the other side, yeah, the creep will be lacking. Oh! Huge. Nine more workers, and this was going to be my point regardless, is that Reynor did find himself very quickly 282 workers, now 79 as he has been making additional structures, but economy-wise, he's well situated.
And Clem might not remember to remake the missile turret there. Oh, no, he is. Okay, he's good. He's good. But the Muta count is getting to a pretty decent point, going up to 15 now. Obviously, there's been a couple of losses, and he's not been very quick to his upgrades for those Mutas, but it is, again, about this particular position where creep has not been respread. I mean, I wasn't just pointing it out just for the sake of it. Like, this is a really important point for the Zerg player to defend. Coming with a surround. I mean, it's not really a surround, though. It is just trying to find this tank. And the Banelings are fortunately going to be able to survive. So, again, potential surround for later on. But Clem's, again, in the natural. You know, he's actually stopping 2 reinforcement points while he's here. I'm not sure that Reynor's going to be able to dislodge him.
Yeah, but Reynor is setting himself a win condition this time around, something that he wasn't able to do in the previous map, which is just killing enough economy that if he holds on his side of the map, he will be able to close out this game. And this also puts pressure onto the army of Clem to make something happen sooner rather than later. So now might be go time for Clem, as he knows that the army of Reynor, the Mutas of Reynor, can come back and kind of help defend here. So right now is his main and best opening. The Mutas are still being paid attention from Reynor, but now I think he realizes all he has to do is clean this up. One base has already been lost. I'm not sure that he can afford to lose. Oh, the Banelings! The Banelings all go down. Incredible focus fire there. That crucial moment from Clem. And my God, this is looking super scary, CG.
I mean, Reynor's pretty dead. He knows it. He's slouching in his chair yet again. Not going to make it into the season finals. Clem just too good in these TVZs. I don't think Reynor realized that his Baneling nests have been taken down, so he's probably maybe even hoping to build more Banelings, but only kept out at 2. That's an easy target fire for a guy like Clem. And Reynor is now at just half the supply of his opponent. This is it. Clem makes it into the season.